At the glittering charity gala in the heart of Manhattan, Nathaniel Harrington stood on the stage with a smug grin, pointing directly at Elliott Reyes as he delivered his punchline to the crowd of elite guests. "Look at this guy, the chef's boy trying to play in our league like he belongs here with real men," he said, his voice echoing through the microphone as laughter rippled through the room. Little did Nathaniel know that his cruel joke would set off a chain of events that would force him to confront the very secrets he had buried deep inside for years. Elliott stood frozen near the catering table, his cheeks burning with humiliation. As the son of a renowned gay chef who had built his catering business from nothing after coming out in his 40s, Elliott had faced judgment before, but never like this from someone like Nathaniel, the heir to a billion-dollar real estate empire. The room seemed to spin as he gripped the edge of the table, his mind racing with the familiar ache of being seen as less than. His father, Marco Reyes, who was overseeing the kitchen staff in the back, had always taught him to hold his head high, but tonight the spotlight felt like a spotlight of shame. Elliott's dark eyes met Nathaniel's for a split second, and something in that gaze, something raw and unexpected, made the laughter die in his throat. The crowd was still chuckling when Nathaniel stepped away from the mic, his tailored tuxedo suddenly feeling too tight. He had meant it as a joke, the kind his circle of trust fund friends always laughed at, the kind that kept his own truth hidden behind layers of bravado. But as the applause faded and people turned back to their champagne flutes, Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. He watched Elliott straighten his shoulders, wipe his hands on his crisp white shirt, and walk toward the exit with quiet dignity. Something inside Nathaniel cracked. Before he could stop himself, he grabbed the microphone again, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Wait. I was wrong. That wasn't funny. None of it was. Because the truth is I'm gay. And I've been watching Elliott all night because I can't stop thinking about him." The entire ballroom froze. Crystal glasses hovered midair. Conversations halted. Eyes widened in disbelief. Nathaniel's best friend, Derek, dropped his drink, the glass shattering on the marble floor. Elliott turned slowly at the door, his expression shifting from hurt to utter shock. Marco stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel, his face a mask of stunned silence. Nathaniel stood there, heart hammering, the weight of years of hiding crashing down in one reckless confession. He had just blown up his entire world in front of New York's most powerful families, and for the first time, it felt like the only honest thing he had ever done. The silence stretched, thick and electric. Elliott took a hesitant step back into the room, his mind reeling. Who was this man who had mocked him seconds ago and now stood exposed, vulnerable, eyes locked on his with a desperation that felt painfully real? The guests began whispering, phones discreetly rising to capture the moment. Nathaniel's father, the stern patriarch of the Harrington Empire, rose from his table, face pale with fury. But Nathaniel didn't look away from Elliott. In that frozen instant, the mocking had become something else entirely, a bridge built on honesty that neither man had asked for, but both now had to cross. As security gently ushered the press away and the gala organizers scrambled to restore order, Elliott found himself walking toward Nathaniel, drawn by an invisible force. "Why?" he asked quietly when he reached the stage steps, his voice steady despite the chaos. Nathaniel stepped down, close enough that Elliott could see the tremble in his hands. "Because hiding was killing me. And seeing you stand there, taking it like that, it made me realize I couldn't anymore." The words hung between them, raw and unfiltered, as the room slowly thawed into murmurs and stares. For Elliott, the night that began in humiliation had twisted into something far more dangerous, hope. Outside on the balcony overlooking the glittering city, the two men stood in the cool night air, the distant hum of traffic below. Nathaniel leaned on the railing, staring at the lights. "My family expects me to take over the company, marry the right girl, produce heirs. They don't know they can't know." Elliott listened, his own memories surfacing. The nights his father had cried after losing clients because of who he loved, the quiet pride in Marco's eyes when Elliott chose to work beside him instead of hiding. "I get it," Elliott said softly. "But pretending doesn't make it go away." Nathaniel turned, their eyes meeting again, and in that moment the air shifted. The confession had changed everything, but the real journey was only beginning. Back inside, Derek pulled Nathaniel aside, his face twisted in confusion and anger. What the hell was that? You're throwing everything away for some waiter's kid. Nathaniel shook his head, the adrenaline fading into cold reality. He had sacrificed his carefully constructed image in one breath, and now the consequences were unfolding like dominoes. Elliott watched from across the room as Marco approached, placing a protective hand on his son's shoulder. You okay, Mijo? Marco whispered. Elliott nodded, but his gaze kept drifting back to Nathaniel. The wealthy heir who had mocked him now stood alone, exposed, and Elliott felt an unexpected pull to reach out. The night ended with whispers following them out the doors, but neither man knew that this single moment would unravel their lives in ways they could never have imagined. The days after the gala blurred into a haze of headlines and hushed phone calls. Heir comes out in shocking public confession, screamed the tabloids, and Nathaniel's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. His father had summoned him to the family penthouse the next morning, the air thick with disappointment and barely contained rage. You embarrassed this family in front of everyone who matters, Richard Harrington said, his voice low and cutting. Fix it, or forget about the company. Nathaniel sat in silence, the weight of tradition pressing down like the skyscrapers outside the window. He had always known the expectations. Harvard, the boardroom, the perfect society wife, but the confession had cracked the foundation, and he couldn't seal it again. Across town in the cozy Brooklyn brownstone that doubled as the Reyes family restaurant headquarters, Elliott helped his father prep for the day's catering jobs. Marco moved with practiced efficiency, chopping vegetables while stealing glances at his son. That Harrington boy, he meant what he said. Elliott shrugged, slicing onions with more force than necessary. I don't know, Dad. It felt real. But he humiliated me first. Marco set down his knife, his expression softening with the wisdom of someone who had walked the same path years earlier. People lash out when they're scared. I did, before I accepted who I was. Just be careful. Rich boys like that come with complications. Elliott nodded, but the memory of Nathaniel's eyes on the balcony lingered, warm and searching. Later that afternoon, a sleek black town car pulled up outside the restaurant. Nathaniel stepped out, still in yesterday's rumpled shirt, looking nothing like the polished heir from the gala. He hesitated at the door before pushing it open, the bell jingling softly. Elliott looked up from the counter, surprised. What are you doing here? Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, the confident smirk from the stage long gone. I came to apologize properly. And to talk. If you'll let me. They sat in the back booth, steaming cups of coffee between them. Nathaniel spoke haltingly about growing up in a world where weakness was unacceptable, where his mother's quiet sighs and father's lectures had taught him to bury every feeling. Elliott listened, sharing stories of his own, watching his father fight for respect in a kitchen full of straight chefs, the lonely nights wondering if love was worth the pain. As the sun dipped lower, their conversation flowed easier. Nathaniel laughed at Elliott's impression of a demanding client, and Elliott found himself smiling at Nathaniel's surprisingly self-deprecating humor. But when Derek texted Nathaniel a string of angry messages demanding he come to his senses, the tension returned. He was my best friend since prep school, Nathaniel admitted. Now he looks at me like I'm a stranger. Elliott reached across the table, his hand hovering but not touching. Real friends stay. The rest they show you who they really are. Nathaniel met his gaze, the connection sparking again, stronger than before. That evening, as Nathaniel drove back to his empty apartment, doubt crept in. Had the confession been a mistake? His father's ultimatum echoed, renounce it publicly or lose everything. Yet the memory of Elliott's steady presence kept him grounded. Meanwhile, Elliott lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Marco's words echoing. Complications. But for the first time in years, the idea of letting someone in didn't feel terrifying. It felt possible. The misunderstanding of the mocking had softened into something deeper, but the real test was still ahead, hidden in the secrets both men still carried. Weeks turned into a tentative routine. Nathaniel began showing up at the restaurant after hours, rolling up his sleeves to help with prep work that would have horrified his country club friends. Elliott taught him the difference between chopping and mincing, laughing when Nathaniel's knife slipped and nearly took off a fingertip. You're a natural disaster in the kitchen, Elliott teased, but there was warmth in his voice. Nathaniel soaked it in, the simple normalcy of balm against the storm at home. His father had frozen his trust fund and canceled board meetings, whispering to associates that it was a phase. His mother sent passive-aggressive texts about suitable matches at upcoming fundraisers. The pressure mounted, but Nathaniel found himself looking forward to the late-night talks with Elliott more than anything. One rainy evening, they walked along the Brooklyn promenade after closing, the city lights reflecting on the river. Nathaniel opened up about the betrayal that hurt most. Derek had leaked private texts to a gossip site, painting Nathaniel as unstable and unfit to lead the company. "He was supposed to have my back," Nathaniel said, voice tight. Elliott stopped under a street lamp, rain dripping from his hood. "People like him fear what they don't understand. My dad lost half his staff when he came out. But the ones who stayed? They became family." Nathaniel looked at him, the rain blurring the lines between them, and for a moment the world narrowed to just Elliott's steady gaze. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the space, but fear held him back. At home, Elliott's father noticed the change. Marco sat across the dinner table one night, fork paused midair. "This Nathaniel, he's not playing games." Elliott hesitated, then nodded. "I think he's scared, Dad. Like you were once." Marco's eyes softened with old pain. "Scared is fine. But if he hurts you because his world won't let him be real, that's different." The conversation lingered, stirring Elliott's doubts. Was he falling for a man who might choose safety over truth? The next day, a misunderstanding erupted. Elliott overheard Nathaniel on a call with his lawyer, discussing damage control and public statements. Convinced it was about taking back the confession, Elliott confronted him in the restaurant alley. "So that's it. One big show, and now you're fixing your image." Nathaniel's face crumpled. "No. I'm fighting to keep the parts that matter, you." The argument dissolved into quiet understanding, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Friendships fractured further when Nathaniel's sister, Claire, reached out secretly, warning him their father was planning to disinherit him unless he attended a family retreat to straighten things out. Nathaniel refused, choosing instead to help Elliott cater a small private event. Side by side in the kitchen, their hands brushed while plating desserts, sending sparks through both of them. That night, walking home, Nathaniel stopped Elliott under the awning of his building. "I don't want to hide anymore. Not with you." Elliott's heart raced, but he stepped back. "Actions, Nathaniel. Not just words." The decision to trust hung between them, heavy with possibility and risk. The turning point arrived at the annual Harrington Family Foundation Gala, the same event that had sparked everything months earlier. Nathaniel had been invited, summoned, really, by his father as a final test. Elliott agreed to cater, partly for the paycheck and partly because he couldn't stay away. The ballroom felt different now, charged with memories. As guests arrived in designer gowns and tuxedos, whispers followed Nathaniel like shadows. His father pulled him aside early, voice ice cold. "One more stunt and you're out." The company, the name, everything. Nathaniel nodded, but his eyes searched the room for Elliott, who moved gracefully among the tables in his chef's jacket. Midway through the evening, Derek appeared, drunk and bitter, cornering Nathaniel near the bar. "You ruined us both with that little speech. Now you're slumming it with the help." The words cut deep, dredging up every insecurity. Nathaniel's hands clenched, but before he could respond, Elliott stepped between them, calm but firm. "He's not slumming. He's choosing honesty." Derek laughed, but the crowd nearby had heard. Phones came out again. Nathaniel felt the old panic rise, the urge to deflect, to mock, to protect himself the way he always had. Instead, he took Elliott's hand right there in the middle of the floor. "He's right. And I'm done pretending." The room didn't freeze this time, it erupted. Later, in the quiet of the coat room, the full weight hit. Nathaniel's father had witnessed the moment and left without a word, the message clear. Consequences were coming. Elliott held Nathaniel as the adrenaline faded, feeling the tremor in his shoulders. "You didn't have to do that." Nathaniel pulled back, eyes shining. "Yes, I did. For me. For us." But the sacrifice was immediate. The next morning, legal papers arrived stripping Nathaniel of his executive title and freezing assets. He moved into a modest apartment near the restaurant, trading penthouse views for takeout boxes and late-night talks. Elliott helped him unpack, their closeness growing into something solid and real. Yet secrets still lingered. Elliott hadn't told Nathaniel about the scholarship offer in California that would take him away for culinary training, his dream, but one that meant leaving everything behind. When the letter arrived, Elliott hid it, fearing it would push Nathaniel away just as he was rebuilding. Meanwhile, Marco watched his son fall deeper, proud but worried. "Love shouldn't cost you your future," he said one evening. Elliott nodded, but the decision weighed heavy. The misunderstanding festered quietly until Nathaniel found the letter by accident, sparking the first real fight. "You were going to leave without telling me?" The hurt in his voice mirrored Elliott's own fears. They talked through the night, decisions made and consequences accepted, both men growing in the process. Betrayal came from an unexpected place. Claire, Nathaniel's sister, had been secretly recording family conversations, feeding them to the press in a misguided attempt to save her brother's reputation. The story broke on a Monday morning. Harrington Heir's gay affair with chef's son, family plot to disinherit exposed. Paparazzi swarmed the restaurant. Elliott's father fielded calls from old clients pulling out, the business he had built with blood and tears suddenly on shaky ground. Nathaniel stood in the kitchen, fists clenched, realizing his own sister had chosen loyalty to the family name over him. "I thought she understood," he whispered. Elliott pulled him into a hug, the kind that said more than words ever could. "Some people choose fear. We choose each other." The sacrifice deepened. Nathaniel sold his remaining luxury watches and cars to help Marco keep the business afloat, working double shifts alongside Elliott without complaint. Their relationship strengthened in the quiet moments, late-night walks, shared meals, the simple act of Nathaniel learning to make his father's famous paella under Marco's watchful eye. Family expectations clashed hardest during a tense dinner at the Reyes home. Marco set an extra plate, his gaze steady. "If you're serious about my son, you fight for him every day. Not just when it's easy." Nathaniel met the challenge head-on, promising not with grand gestures, but with presence. Elliott watched, heart full, seeing the man he loved choose growth over comfort. Societal pressure peaked when an old college friend of Nathaniel's invited them to a high-profile event, only to cancel last minute with a vague excuse. The rejection stung, but it also clarified what mattered. They spent the evening instead at a small pride gathering in the park, surrounded by people who cheered their story rather than judged it. There, under string lights, Nathaniel whispered, "I used to think acceptance was something I had to earn. Now I know it's something I give myself." Elliott smiled, the journey from that first mocking laugh feeling like a lifetime ago. Yet the climax loomed. Nathaniel's father called one final time, offering reinstatement if Nathaniel would keep it private and attend therapy. The decision tore at him, security versus authenticity. Elliott stood by, silent support, knowing the choice had to be Nathaniel's alone. After hours of pacing, Nathaniel declined, the phone call ending in cold silence. The consequence was immediate. The family foundation removed his name from every building. But in its place, Nathaniel found something priceless: freedom. The final confrontation unfolded at the foundation's year-end fundraiser, the very stage where it all began. Nathaniel had been uninvited, but Elliott insisted they cater anyway, turning the event into their quiet stand. As the speeches droned on, Nathaniel stepped forward unannounced, microphone in hand once more. This time there was no mockery, only truth. "I lost everything the night I told the truth here. But I gained something better, myself. And the man who showed me what real love looks like." He looked straight at Elliott, who stood near the kitchen doors, eyes shining with pride. The room didn't freeze, it listened. Some guests clapped. Others walked out. Nathaniel's father remained seated, face unreadable, but for the first time, there was a flicker of something like respect. Afterward, in the quiet aftermath, the two men walked the same balcony where their story had truly started. Elliott finally shared his California dream, and Nathaniel encouraged him to go, promising to visit every weekend. "We've both sacrificed enough," Nathaniel said. "Now we build something new together." Marco watched from the doorway, nodding approval as father and son shared a quiet moment. The friendships that survived, new ones forged in honesty, replaced the old. Elliott's growth showed in his quiet confidence, Nathaniel's in his willingness to start over from nothing. The journey from public humiliation to private peace had changed them both. proving that acceptance wasn't handed out but claimed through every hard choice. Months later, with Elliott back from training and Nathaniel launching a small consulting firm built on his own terms, they stood in the remodeled restaurant, now thriving again. Life wasn't perfect, family ties remained strained, society still whispered, but the love between them was real, earned, and unbreakable. True or false? True love requires risking everything, including family ties, for acceptance?